Okay, so the reason I'm making this video right now is because a few months ago I had the horrendous experience of learning about the number I in algebra. The number I, not the letter, the number. Just let that sink in for a minute. If you don't know what I is, first of all, consider yourself really fucking lucky. I is basically an abbreviation for an imaginary number. And believe it or not, that is actually a term we use in actual math class in actual real life. All I's purpose is if there is a negative number that you need to square root, it's gonna make it so like it's positive. So for instance, if you have negative 36 and you put a square root sign over it, instead of it being undefined, you put I next to it and suddenly now it magically equals 6. See, this is the point where I stop and say no. Because up until this point in math, I have kind of seemed to kind of understand the purpose of why we are learning things and like, okay, maybe I can use this in real life if I'm like a rocket scientist or something. But I pisses me off because we had to learn about it and it doesn't fucking exist. You can't just take like an equation that's undefined and then put like a magical number next to it, and then that makes it defined. Like, no, that doesn't work. That's not, it's undefined. It's fucking undefined. If you have an undefined equation, that is your fault. You're the one who fucked up. You don't use some fucking sorcery and make it an answer. There is no real world situation where you will use I. I don't care how complex the math is. If you need to use I, then you made an error in your calculations and you need to go back and fix that motherfucker so you don't have to use I anymore, because if you have to use I, it's not working for you. You didn't do it right. There's no fixing it. It's over, okay? It's over. It's fucking over. You can't just pull some little trick out of your hat and say, okay, now I have an answer because I was too stupid to admit that I fucked up and didn't actually have an answer, so now I'm gonna lie and trick myself into thinking there's an answer. And another thing about I is that there's some weird pattern that if you multiply I by 1, it equals like negative 1 or I or something, and then if you multiply it by I, it's negative I, and then if you, whatever the fuck, ones and I's makes a different assortment of ones and I's. And that makes no fucking sense on any way. I understood when we had like two planes of numbers, the negative and the positive, but when you try to put in like a fucking third thing and then combine it into the two other planes, no, that's not logical. You don't put an extra letter in to make everything right again from something that was completely wrong. That's what English class is for. And then there's this other shit I remember, that if you have I as the denominator in a fraction, then like you can't have that, you have to change it so it's in the numerator. And I'm like, who the fuck came up with these rules, and who the hell is naming them god of the freaking math equations here? I isn't logical, so why the hell should we make some logical set of rules for it that don't pertain to anything? And then the math teacher has the fucking nerve to say this shit does make sense. Like, I don't care how the hell you justify this, you cannot just go and contradict everything that I've ever learned in school for the past 9 years and say that I is a number. It's not a number, it's a letter. I don't care how squiggly weird thing you make out of it, it's still a fucking letter. And I am not associating it with numbers unless it is being used as a variable. So this goes out to whoever the hell invented imaginary numbers. You fucking suck. You have too much time on your hands. You need to get a fucking girlfriend instead of making another plane of numbers to just make everything more difficult for everyone. You are the ultimate of get a fucking life. All my life, since 6th grade, we've had these little chart things about what were rational and irrational numbers. And there'd be the little two circles, you know, that have the little middle section, whatever the hell you call that. And like there'd be some random numbers, like pi would be here, or like 1, and like it would symbolize like, okay, these are rational and irrational, and you know, these make fucking sense. Then, on the outside of this chart, like all alone by itself, next to no other number, there'd just be like this mysterious squiggly I, like hanging out there, like, fuck you guys, I'm just gonna be by myself outside the chart for no fucking reason. And every time we'd ask the math teacher, like, what the hell's this? They'd always get really nervous and be like, you'll learn about that in, high school. And we're just like, okay then. So every year past then, we got the same shit. Every year, I just got more increasingly curious and frustrated with this fucking I that decides to be forever alone outside of the circles. And so, you know, my expectation by then is that it's some fucking, like, giant, magical, amazing number. If no one wants to talk about it so much, there must be something to it. It was like the Voldemort of numbers. No one wanted to talk about it. Like, that, it must have been pretty fucking cool, right? And then so I got to my fucking math class in high school. And then finally, Miss Algebraic instructor has the fucking nerve to go and explain what the hell I is. And it is nothing. I is nothing. It doesn't have any significance to anything. It is a fucking wimpy ass number because it doesn't do shit. And I just wasted 4 years of my life thinking it's gonna be this great thing, and it's not. It was just faking gay, and I had my expectations up for no fucking reason. And that is why I hate I with a fiery passion, and I wish it all the best to fucking die in hell and burn in a pit of fire and demons. That's all.